"I can fix this myself," the grubby, grease-stained boy declared, standing in front of the Rolls-Royce. Millionaire Patrick Riley and his mates laughed in his face. Little did they know, this boy held a secret that would change everything. The black Rolls-Royce Phantom had sputtered to a halt in the middle of George Street with a terrible metallic screech that made every pedestrian turn their head. White smoke billowed from the luxury car's bonnet, and the driver, visibly flustered, tried to restart it over and over without success. Behind the stranded vehicle, an endless line of cars began to form, horns blaring relentlessly. Patrick Riley stepped out of the back seat, his fury evident in every movement. He was a 8-year-old man, with perfectly slicked-back hair, a designer suit that cost more than an average car, and that air of superiority only found in those who'd never heard the word no. His 3 business associates got out with him, all equally elegant, all equally annoyed. "This is unacceptable," Patrick yelled, hitting the car's roof with his hand. "I paid $500,000 for this rubbish, and it breaks down in the middle of the city." His chauffeur, an older man named Tom, desperately tried to explain. "Mr. Riley, I think it's the cooling system, but we need a mechanic who specializes in I'm not interested in your opinion." Patrick cut him off with disdain. "Call the dealership right now and tell them I'm going to sue them." The scene was attracting more and more onlookers. Office workers leaving their jobs, street vendors, students. Everyone stopped to watch the spectacle of the furious millionaire next to his broken-down luxury car. Some pulled out their phones to record. "Patrick, calm down," said Liam Vance, one of his associates. "We'll call a tow truck and just get a cab. We have that important meeting in an hour." "A cab? Me? Patrick Riley? In a cab?" he replied with indignation. "I'd rather walk barefoot over broken glass." It was at that moment a small but clear voice broke the circle of tension. "I can help you, sir." Everyone turned towards the voice. It was a boy of about 12, thin, with messy black hair and a grease-stained face. He wore faded jeans, a t-shirt that had once been white but was now covered in oil spots, and worn-out sneakers that seemed to have more holes than fabric. In his hands, he carried a rusty toolbox that looked almost as old as he was. "Excuse me?" Patrick stared at him, as if he'd just seen something impossible. "What did you say?" "I can help you with your car, sir," the boy repeated, stepping a little closer. "I know what's wrong with it. I can fix it." The laughter that erupted was deafening. Patrick and his 3 associates bent over with laughter, pointing at the boy as if he were the funniest joke they'd heard in years. The curious onlookers also started laughing, caught up in the absurd situation. "Did you hear that?" Patrick roared between chuckles. "The scruffy kid says he can fix my Rolls-Royce car even the dealership mechanics don't fully understand." "Maybe he thinks it's like fixing a bike," added Finn Dawson, another associate, prompting more laughter. The boy didn't flinch. He held Patrick's gaze firmly, with a determination that didn't match his age or appearance. "I know what I'm doing, sir. My dad taught me." "Your dad?" Patrick approached the boy with a mocking smile. "And who's your dad? The best mechanic at the local dump?" More laughter. The circle of onlookers had grown, and everyone seemed to be enjoying the show. Some recorded with their phones, muttering comments about the poor boy and the arrogant man. "My dad was the best mechanic in the city," the boy replied, and for the first time, his voice trembled slightly. He was. Patrick caught the past tense, with an even crueler smile. "He's not anymore? Got tired of fixing old bangers, did he?" The boy pressed his lips together, and anyone paying attention could see the tears beginning to form in his eyes. "My dad died 3 months ago. He had an accident at the workshop." The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Some of the onlookers stopped laughing, exchanging embarrassed glances, but Patrick didn't seem affected in the slightest. "What a shame," he said, without a hint of genuine empathy. "But that doesn't make you a mechanic, kid. Now, clear off before I call the police for harassment." "Please, sir," the boy insisted, taking a step forward. "Just let me look at the engine. If I can't fix it, I'll go. But if I can, you'll make it to your meeting." "You heard, Mr. Riley, Matt, Tom, the chauffeur, interjected with a kinder tone. "It's best if you go, mate." But something in the boy's gaze stopped Patrick. Perhaps it was the absolute determination, or perhaps, deep down, he enjoyed prolonging the public humiliation. He crossed his arms and smiled. "You know what? I'll give you a go," he said in a tone that clearly indicated this was pure entertainment for him. "If you can fix my car, I'll give you $100. The boy seemed to light up for a second, but Patrick wasn't finished, continuing to raise his voice so everyone could hear. "But when you can't fix it, because obviously you won't be able to, you'll crawl out of here like the insect you are." Deal? Patrick, that's too much. Vanessa, his secretary, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke up. She was a 30-year-old woman, always professional, but even she looked uncomfortable with her boss's cruelty. Quiet, Vanessa. Nobody asked for your opinion. Patrick silenced her with a wave of his hand, then looked at the boy. So, do you accept or not? The boy swallowed hard, looked at his toolbox, then the car, and finally back at Patrick. I accept. Perfect. Patrick clapped sarcastically. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to witness the most pathetic spectacle of the day. The little urchin is going to try and fix a Rolls-Royce. The boy approached the car and gestured for permission to open the bonnet. Tom looked at Patrick, who nodded with amusement. When the bonnet lifted, a cloud of steam escaped, making the boy step back. Given up already? Patrick asked, laughing. Don't blame you. This is a job for professionals, not kids playing with wrenches. But the boy didn't respond. He approached the engine, ignoring the heat emanating from it, and began to examine each component with absolute concentration. His eyes moved rapidly, following lines of wires, checking hoses, observing connections. He pulled a small torch from his toolbox and used it to illuminate the deeper parts of the engine. This is going to take all day, Liam commented, looking at his watch. We've wasted enough time with this circus. Patience, Patrick replied, clearly enjoying himself. I want to see exactly how long it takes him to admit he can't. The boy worked in silence, oblivious to the comments and laughter. He checked the cooling system, the electrical connections, the car's computer. His hands, though small and dirty, moved with surprising precision. After 5 minutes of inspection, he stopped. The problem, he said with a clear voice. Yes, Patrick approached with his arms crossed. Enlighten us with your infinite wisdom, little genius. The coolant temperature sensor is failing, the boy explained, pointing to a specific part. It's sending incorrect readings to the computer, causing the engine to overheat. Plus, there's a small leak in the upper radiator hose that's causing pressure loss. The silence that followed was different from before. It was no longer uncomfortable but surprised. Even Patrick seemed to lose his smirk for a second. Anyone can make up technical diagnoses, he quickly recovered. But fixing it is another thing. I can fix it, the boy insisted. I need 20 minutes. I'll give you 10, Patrick replied cruelly. And the clock starts now. The boy wasted no time arguing. He opened his toolbox and pulled out pliers, screwdrivers, electrical tape, and other tools that looked like they'd seen better days. He set to work with a speed and efficiency that left many open-mouthed. First, he disconnected the faulty sensor with precise movements, then pulled a spare from his box, one he had clearly kept from a previous job. He installed it carefully, ensuring every connection was perfect. Then he moved to the leaking hose, cut the damaged section with a small knife, and used an emergency connector sealed with metal clamps. 5 minutes, Patrick announced, looking at his expensive watch. This is more entertaining than I thought. The boy worked, sweating, his hands trembling slightly, not from nervousness but from effort. He checked all connections twice. He added coolant from a bottle he pulled from his box, and finally closed the bonnet. Done, he said, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving another grease stain. Done? Patrick approached the car. Are you telling me my $500,000 Rolls-Royce is fixed after some grubby kid touched it with his rusty tools? Try it, the boy responded, with a confidence that made several onlookers murmur amongst themselves. Patrick looked at Tom. Start it up. The chauffeur got into the car, inserted the key and turned. For a second, nothing happened, and Patrick began to smile with triumph. But then the engine roared to life with a perfect, smooth, and powerful purr, exactly as a Rolls-Royce should sound. There was no smoke, no strange noises, nothing. It worked perfectly. The crowd that had gathered erupted in applause and shouts of amazement. The boy had achieved the impossible. Patrick Riley stood paralyzed, staring at his car as if seeing it for the first time. His expression shifted from surprise to confusion, and then to something that dangerously resembled shame, though he would never admit it. No, it can't be, Liam muttered. The kid actually did it. Finn added, incredulous. Vanessa approached the boy with a genuine smile. That was incredible. How did you learn to do that? My dad, the boy replied simply, looking at his tools. He taught me everything. He used to say a true mechanic doesn't need the most expensive tools, they just need to understand how things work. The words hit Patrick like an invisible punch. He looked at the boy with an unreadable expression, a mix of impressment, annoyance, and something deeper he didn't want to acknowledge. Right, he said finally, pulling out his wallet. A deal's a deal. He took out $100 notes and extended them to the boy, but when the little one reached out to take them, Patrick let them drop to the ground. "Oops," he said with a cruel smile. "They slipped. Pick 'em up." The boy looked at the notes on the ground, then at Patrick, and finally bent down to pick them up. But as his fingers touched the first note, Patrick placed his Italian leather shoe on his hand. "Wait," he said, with a cold voice. "Before you go with your prize, I want everyone here to know something." The crowd fell silent, sensing something bad was coming. "This kid got lucky," Patrick announced loudly. "Pure beginner's luck. Any real mechanic could have done the same in half the time. There's nothing special here." He removed his foot from the boy's hand, and the boy quickly gathered the notes and put them in his pocket. Silent tears ran down his dirty cheeks, leaving clean streaks on his skin. "Thanks for the money, sir," he said, his voice cracking. "My mum needs it for her medicine." And without another word, the boy picked up his toolbox and began to walk away through the crowd. Onlookers parted to let him pass, many with expressions of pity and anger towards Patrick. "Shameful," a woman yelled from the crowd. "The kid saved you, and that's how you treat him? You should be embarrassed," another man added. But Patrick simply got into his car, ordered Tom to start it, and drove away, leaving behind an indignant crowd and a boy who walked alone with his toolbox, $100 richer, but with a broken heart. What Patrick Riley didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this boy wasn't just a talented mechanic. He was Matt Reynolds, son of the legendary Michael Reynolds, the man who had revolutionized the world of automotive mechanics in Australia before his tragic death. And what had just happened on that street wasn't the end of a story of humiliation, but the beginning of a lesson that would change Patrick Riley's life forever. Because destiny has curious ways of making people meet again. And when Patrick and Matt met again, the tables would be completely turned. Matt walked through the dark streets of Redfern, his toolbox clanking against his leg with every step. The tears had already dried on his face, leaving clean lines amidst the grease and dust. It was almost 9 p.m., and the yellowish streetlights barely illuminated the broken footpaths and closed shops. In his pocket, the $100 felt heavy, not because of its value, but because of the price he had paid to get it. Every cruel word from Patrick Riley kept echoing in his head like an unshakable sound. But he needed that money. He needed it desperately. He arrived at a 3-story building with peeling paint and windows with rusty bars. He climbed the stairs to the second floor, where a battered wooden door had a faded number, 2B. Before knocking, he took a deep breath, wiped his face with his t-shirt, and tried to smile. His mum couldn't see him like this. "Matt, is that you, son?" Grace's weak voice came from inside. "Yeah, Mum, I'm home," he replied, pushing open the door that was never locked because the latch had been broken for years. The apartment was small, barely 30 square meters, divided into a living room that was also the kitchen, a tiny bathroom, and a bedroom where the two of them slept. The walls had damp patches, and the ceiling showed patches where there had once been leaks, but it was clean, tidy, with that touch of dignity Grace insisted on maintaining. Despite everything, Grace was sitting on the only sofa in the place, one they had rescued from the street years ago. She was 42, but looked 50. Her black hair was beginning to fill with premature grays. Her pale skin showed the fatigue of someone who had been struggling for years, and her hands trembled slightly, a symptom of the illness that slowly consumed her. "Son, you're late," she said with concern, trying to get up but failing. "I was worried. Did you get any work?" Matt put his toolbox on the floor and pulled the $100 from his pocket with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I got something better, Mum. I fixed a very expensive car." "Look." Grace's eyes filled with tears when she saw the notes. "Matt, son, where did you get so much money?" "I told you. I fixed a Rolls Royce. The owner paid me well," he half-lied, omitting the part about the humiliation and laughter. Grace took his face in her trembling hands, looking at him with those brown eyes that still held the warmth of better times. "You're just like your father. Michael would be so proud of you." His father's name was like a dagger in Matt's chest. Michael Reynolds had been more than a mechanic. He had been a wizard with engines, a man who could diagnose any problem just by listening to the sound of a car. But he had also been the best father in the world, the one who taught him that mechanics wasn't just about turning wrenches, but about understanding the soul of machines. "Mum, we have to go buy your medicine first thing tomorrow morning." Matt changed the subject. He couldn't bear to talk about his father without breaking down. "Son, with this money, we can buy food too. You haven't eaten well in days." "Your medicine first, Mum. I'm fine." Grace hugged him, and Matt felt his mother tremble. The illness attacking her was a degenerative neurological condition that required expensive medication that the public health system didn't fully cover. Every month was a battle to find enough money. "Do you know what day tomorrow is?" Grace asked softly. Matt knew perfectly well. 3 months since Dad. He couldn't finish the sentence. Neither could Grace. They simply hugged in silence, sharing a pain that words couldn't express. Michael Reynolds had died in an accident at the workshop where he worked. A hydraulic lift had failed while he was checking the underside of a truck, crushing him in seconds. By the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. The workshop owner, a ruthless man named Hugh Fenton, didn't even pay the due compensation, arguing that Michael had been negligent. "Your father always said you'd be a better mechanic than him one day," Grace whispered. "He said you had a special gift, that you saw things in engines others couldn't. I'm not better than him, Mum. I'm not even half as good. But you have his talent and his heart." That night, Matt could barely sleep. He lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling, thinking about his father, about Patrick Riley, about how they had treated him. But he also thought about something else. Something his father had told him weeks before he died. "Matt," Michael had said, while they worked together in the workshop, "someday you're going to meet people who will treat you like you're worthless. They'll laugh at you, they'll belittle you, but remember this. A person's true worth isn't in how much money they have or how elegantly they dress. It's in what they can create with their hands and how they treat others." At the time, Matt hadn't fully understood those words. Now, after what happened with Patrick, he understood them perfectly. The next morning, Matt woke to the sound of his mother coughing in the bedroom. He quickly got up, frightened. But when he entered, Grace smiled weakly. "I'm fine, son. Just the cold morning air. I'll make breakfast, and then we'll get your medicine." With the $100, he bought the medication Grace needed for the month, leaving him barely $20 for food. But it was enough if they were careful, if they ate the basics, if they made every dollar last. "Matt," Grace said as they walked back home, "I need you to promise me something. Anything, Mum. Don't let people dim your light. I know they treated you badly yesterday. I saw the tear marks on your face when you got home, but don't let that change you." Matt didn't ask how she knew. Mothers always know. "I won't change, Mum. I promise." But destiny had other plans for Matt Reynolds. Plans that would begin to unfold that very day. When they returned to the apartment, they found a woman waiting outside their door. She was elegant, in her 30s, dressed in a professional yet approachable business suit. Matt recognized her immediately. It was Vanessa, Patrick Riley's secretary. "Matt Reynolds?" she asked with a kind smile. "Yes?" "What are you doing here?" Matt replied suspiciously, positioning himself protectively in front of his mother. "Don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble. Quite the opposite." Vanessa pulled a business card from her bag. "My name is Vanessa Miller. I work for Mr. Riley. Yesterday, after what happened, I looked into who you were." "Why?" Grace interjected with that maternal instinct of protection. "Because what your son did yesterday was extraordinary, Mrs. Reynolds, and because I was ashamed of how we treated him." Vanessa spoke with genuine sincerity. "I discovered that Matt is Michael Reynolds' son." The name dropped like a bomb. Grace stiffened, and Matt felt his heart quicken. "You knew my husband?" Grace asked cautiously. "Not personally, but everyone in the automotive industry knows his name," Vanessa explained. "Michael Reynolds was a legend. He revolutionized. His death was a huge loss for the entire community. Matt hadn't known this. He knew his father was good, very good, but he never knew he was recognized beyond their suburb." "Why are you here?" Matt asked directly. Vanessa took a deep breath. "Because Mr. Riley needs a personal mechanic. His car keeps having intermittent problems, and the dealership hasn't been able to solve them. I want to offer you the job." "You're offering me a job working for the man who humiliated me yesterday?" Matt couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I know it sounds absurd," Vanessa admitted, "but the salary would be $1,000 a week, plus transport and tool allowances. It also includes family health insurance." Grace gasped. $1,000 a week was more money than they had seen together in years. And health insurance that meant she could get proper treatment. "No, Mum," Matt said immediately, reading his mother's thoughts. "I'm not working for that man. I'd rather keep looking for odd jobs on the street." "Matt, think about your mother." Vanessa gently pressed. "With that salary and health insurance, she could get the treatment she needs. You could stop worrying about how to pay for her medicine every month." "Son," Grace took Matt's hand, "perhaps you should consider it." "Mum, that man stepped on my hand. He made me pick money off the ground like I was rubbish." Matt's emotions finally exploded. "How can you ask me to work for someone like that?" "Because I love you, Matt. And because I don't want you to sacrifice your future for my pride." Grace's words broke down all of Matt's defenses. He collapsed, hugging his mother, crying tears he had been holding back since the day before. Vanessa waited patiently, giving them space for that private moment. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "Matt, I know Mr. Riley behaved terribly yesterday. I can't defend him or justify him, but I also know you have extraordinary talent, and that talent shouldn't be wasted due to pride or anger." "It's not just pride," Matt responded, wiping his tears. "It's dignity." "You're right, and I'll propose something." Vanessa leaned down to meet Matt's eyes. "Give it a try for a month. If, in that time, Mr. Riley doesn't improve his treatment towards you, you resign, and I will personally help you find another job. But give your mother the chance to receive the treatment she needs." Matt looked at his mother. He saw the hope in her eyes, saw the tremble in her hands, getting worse each day, and knew he had no real choice. "All right," he said finally, his voice tired. "I accept, but on one condition. Which is, if Mr. Riley ever humiliates me again, I leave that very day. No matter the money, no matter the insurance. I leave." "Fair enough." Vanessa smiled. "You start on Monday. I'll meet you at 8 a.m. at the Riley Group headquarters. The address is on the card." When Vanessa left, Grace hugged Matt with all her strength. "Thank you, son. I know this is hard for you. I'd do anything for you, Mum. Anything." That night, as Matt organized his few belongings for his new job, he found something at the bottom of his toolbox he hadn't seen in months. It was an old photograph, bent at the corners, of him and his dad in the workshop. Both were covered in grease, smiling at the camera, with their arms around each other's shoulders. On the back of the photo, in his father's handwriting, it read, "Matt, one day you'll be the best, not because of your hands, but because of your heart. Love you, Dad." Matt pressed the photo to his chest and cried. He didn't know what awaited him at the Riley Group. He didn't know if he could bear working for Patrick after everything. But he knew one thing for sure. He was going to make his father proud. Sunday passed in a mix of nervousness and preparation. Matt cleaned his tools until they shone as much as they could. He washed his only semi-decent clothes and studied the advanced automotive mechanics manual his father had left him. Grace prepared the best dinner they could afford, some simple sausages and mash, and they toasted with cordial to new beginnings and better times. "Dad would be proud of you," Grace said before bed. "Not for the job, but because you're choosing love over pride." Monday arrived too quickly. Matt woke at 5 a.m. He showered with cold water, which was all they had, dressed in his clean clothes, and prepared his toolbox. Grace insisted on giving him money for the bus, even though he protested. "It's your first day in a real job, son. Arrive in dignified transport." The journey to the city center took over an hour. Matt watched from the bus window as the Redfern neighborhood gradually transformed into more prosperous areas, with taller buildings, cleaner streets, more expensive cars. The Riley Group occupied a 20-story glass and steel building in the most exclusive area. Matt felt completely out of place when he entered the gleaming lobby with his old toolbox and clothes that, though clean, clearly didn't belong in that world. "Can I help you?" The receptionist looked at him with a mix of curiosity and barely disguised disdain. "I'm here to see Miss Miller." "I'm Matt Reynolds." The receptionist checked her computer, and her expression changed slightly. "Ah, yes, she's expecting you. Floor 15. Office 1502. The lift was so elegant, Matt was afraid to touch anything with his hands. When he reached the 15th floor, Vanessa was waiting for him at reception with a genuine smile. "Matt, glad you made it. Come, I'll show you your workspace." She led him through corridors filled with offices with glass doors, where impeccably dressed executives worked on state-of-the-art computers. Finally, they reached a service lift that descended to the underground car park. "Your workshop is down here," Vanessa explained. "Mr. Riley has a collection of luxury cars that need constant maintenance. You'll be responsible for all of them." When the doors opened, Matt couldn't help but let his jaw drop. The private car park was bigger than their entire apartment building. There were at least 20 luxury cars. Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bentley, Porsche, and, of course, the Rolls-Royce he had fixed. "Are all these Mr. Riley's?" "Yes, he's an obsessive collector." Vanessa led him to a corner of the car park, where a complete mechanic's workshop had been installed. "This is your workspace. I had professional tools, diagnostic equipment, everything you need brought in." Matt walked through the workshop as if in a dream. There were tools he had only seen in magazines, state-of-the-art, computerized diagnostic equipment, professional hydraulic lifts. It was a mechanic's paradise. "All this is for me?" It's for the care of Mr. Riley's cause. But yes, you'll be the one using it. Vanessa smiled at his reaction. Is there anything else? She handed him an envelope. Matt opened it and found an ID card with his photo. When had they taken his photo? A new mechanic's uniform with his name embroidered and a debit card. The card has your first payment advanced. Mr. Riley thought you'd need money for transport and meals while you settle in. Matt looked at the card, then at Vanessa, confused. Mr. Riley did this? Yes, I know it seems strange after how he treated you, but well, maybe he's giving you a chance to redeem himself. Or maybe he just needs someone to look after his expensive cars, Matt replied with a touch of bitterness. Vanessa couldn't refute that. Perhaps. But either way, here's your chance. Use it well. When do I meet Mr. Riley? He'll be here in an hour. For now, familiarize yourself with the space. When Vanessa left, Matt was alone in the most equipped workshop he had ever seen. He pulled out the photograph of him and his father from his pocket and placed it on a small shelf. Dad, he whispered, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I'm doing it for Mum. And I promise I'm going to be the best mechanic, no matter who belittles me. An hour later, he heard the unmistakable sound of the Rolls-Royce entering the car park. The engine purred perfectly, exactly as Matt had left it days ago. The car stopped in front of the workshop, and Patrick Riley stepped out with his characteristic elegance. He wore another expensive suit, dark sunglasses, and had that expression of superiority Matt knew too well. Their gazes met, and for a moment, neither said anything. The air felt charged with tension, with memories of humiliation, wounded pride, and intact arrogance. Finally, Patrick spoke. So, you agreed to work for me? I agreed to work for your company, Matt corrected. Not for you. A flicker of something surprise crossed Patrick's face. I see you've got character. Good, you'll need it. Is that all you have to say to me? What else do you want me to say? That I'm doing you a favor by giving you this job? An apology would be nice. Patrick took off his sunglasses and looked directly into Matt's eyes. I don't apologize for telling the truth. Yesterday, you were lucky. Today, in a professional environment, we'll see if you're really as good as you think you are. I don't think I'm good, Matt responded with firmness. I know I am. My father taught me well. Your father is dead, Patrick said with calculated cruelty. And the dead can't help you here. The words were like acid on an open wound. Matt clenched his fists, feeling rage boil inside him, but he remembered his mother's words. He remembered the medicine she needed and took a deep breath. You're right, he said with a controlled voice. My father is dead, but he left me something money can't buy. Knowledge, skill, and dignity, something you clearly never had. For the first time, Patrick Riley was speechless. No one, absolutely no one, spoke to him like that, let alone a 1-2-year-old boy. Be careful how you speak to me, he finally said, in a low, dangerous voice. Or else what? Are you going to humiliate me again? Are you going to drop my pay on the ground for me to pick up? Matt took a step forward, fearless. You've already done the worst you could do. You no longer have power over me. Patrick opened his mouth to reply, but stopped. There was something in that boy's eyes, a fierce determination, an inner strength that made him uncomfortable in ways he didn't understand. Start with the Ferrari, he finally said, pointing to a bright red car. It's got a strange noise in the engine. Diagnose it and give me a report before midday. Without another word, Patrick headed for the lift, but before entering, he turned one last time. Matt Reynolds, he said, and it was the first time he used his full name. I didn't hire you out of pity. I hired you because, though it pains me to admit it, you have talent. But talent without discipline is worthless. Here, you're not the son of the legendary Michael Reynolds. You're just another employee. And like any employee, if you don't perform, you're out. Understood? Understood, Mr. Riley, Matt replied. Can I say something? What? Thank you for the opportunity. Even if you gave it to me for the wrong reasons, I'm going to make the most of it. Patrick nodded briefly and entered the lift. When he was gone, Matt turned towards the Ferrari, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was his first real job in a professional workshop. And though he hated to admit it, Patrick was right about one thing. Here, it didn't matter who his father had been. What mattered was who he was. Dad, he whispered, looking at the photograph on the shelf. Give me strength. And with that, Matt Reynolds began his first day at the Riley Group, unaware that this decision would not only change his life, but also change the life of the man who had humiliated him. Because sometimes, the people who hurt us the most end up being the ones who learn the most from us. And the real journey was just beginning. Matt approached the Ferrari 488 GTB with a mix of admiration and determination. The car was a masterpiece of Italian engineering, bright red like blood, with aerodynamic lines that seemed sculpted by the wind. It was worth over $500,000, probably more money than Matt would see in his entire life. He opened the bonnet with reverential care and found a twin-turbo V8 engine that was pure mechanical perfection. But there was something there, a subtle sound that shouldn't exist. He had heard it when Patrick parked the car, an almost imperceptible ticking sound coming from the timing area. He connected the computerized diagnostic equipment, something he had never used before but had studied in his father's manuals. The screen lit up with codes and graphs that would be hieroglyphics to most, but to Matt, they were a clear language. Camshaft sensor reporting irregular readings, he murmured to himself, taking notes in an old notebook he had brought from home. But the sensor is fine, the problem is deeper. He worked for 3 hours non-stop, disassembling covers, checking tensionaires, inspecting the timing chain. His hands moved with the precision his father had taught him. Every movement calculated, every part treated with the respect it deserved. It was then that he found it. One of the timing chain tensioners was starting to fail. It wasn't visible to the naked eye. It didn't appear in computerized diagnostics, but it was there. In a few more months, that tensioner would break completely, and the $500,000 engine would be destroyed. "Dad, I found it," he whispered with a smile, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Just like you taught me, listening beyond the noise." He was documenting everything in his report when he heard voices approaching. It wasn't just Patrick. It was several men speaking in important business tones. "And that's why we need to close the deal this week," said a voice Matt didn't recognize. "The Japanese won't wait any longer." Patrick appeared in the workshop accompanied by 4 men in expensive suits. Matt recognized Liam and Finn from that day on the street, but the other 2 were unknown. One was Japanese, the other European by his accent. "Matt," Patrick called him with a tone that was professional but cold. "Did you finish the diagnosis?" "Yes, sir." Matt wiped his hands with a rag and grabbed his report. "The Ferrari has a timing chain tensioner that's failing. It's not visible in standard diagnostics, but how much will it cost to fix?" Patrick interrupted, clearly more interested in impressing his guests than in listening to technical explanations. "I need to order the part, with installation. About, see, ling ling ling, 4,000. 4,000. One of the men, the one with the European accent, whistled, impressed. "These luxury cars are expensive toys, Patrick, but they're worth every penny." "Indeed," Patrick replied proudly. Then he looked at Matt with an expression that clearly said, "Go, order the part, you're dismissed." "Wait." The Japanese man who had been observing Matt with curiosity spoke. "This boy is your mechanic? He seems very young." "He's temporary," Patrick replied with barely concealed disdain, "until I find a real professional." The words were a verbal slap, but Matt was used to it. He started gathering his tools when the Japanese man approached him. "What's your name?" he asked in English with a noticeable but polite accent. "Matt Reynolds, sir." The man froze for a second. "Reynolds? Your father was Michael Reynolds?" The entire workshop fell silent. Matt nodded slowly, surprised that this stranger knew his father. "Did you know my dad? Know him? Michael Reynolds saved my business." The man spoke with genuine enthusiasm. 10 years ago, my company imported Japanese cars into Australia. We had a massive problem with 100 faulty cars. No one could diagnose the issue. Michael solved it in 2 days. 2 days! What Japanese engineers couldn't do in months. Patrick looked uncomfortable, as if the ground were shifting beneath his feet. "Mr. Tanaka, I wasn't aware you knew the boy's father. Michael Reynolds was a genius," Tanaka continued, ignoring Patrick. "He taught me that mechanics isn't just science, it's an art. It's understanding the soul of machines." He turned to Matt. "Your father taught you?" "Everything I know comes from him," Matt replied, feeling the lump in his throat that always appeared when he spoke of his father. "Then you're more valuable than Patrick believes," Tanaka said, looking meaningfully at his host. "A mechanic trained by Michael Reynolds isn't temporary. He's a treasure." The tension in the air was palpable. Patrick clearly didn't appreciate one of his important guests defending the boy he had hired more out of obligation than respect. "Well, Matt has potential." Patrick tried to regain control of the situation. "That's why I gave him this opportunity." "You gave me the opportunity?" Matt spoke without thinking, the words coming out before he could stop them. "You humiliated me in the middle of the street. You made me pick money off the ground, and you stepped on my hand. You didn't give me any opportunity. I was forced to take it because my mother needs medicine." The silence that followed was absolute. The guests looked between Patrick and Matt with expressions ranging from surprise to discomfort. Liam and Finn looked away, clearly recalling that day. "Matt," Patrick said in a dangerously low voice, "you're fired. Get your things and leave." "Patrick," Tanaka intervened firmly. "What are you talking about? This young man only spoke the truth." "The truth," the European man added critically, "is that you treated a child badly. That says a lot about your character, Riley." Patrick turned red with fury. He wasn't used to being questioned, much less in front of international business partners. "This is private business," he said through clenched teeth. "This is a matter of principle," Tanaka replied. "Michael Reynolds helped me when no one else could. He saved my company, and because of that, I owe his son a debt." He turned to Matt. "Young man, how much does Riley pay you?" $1,000 a week, sir. I offer you $3,000 a week to work for my company, plus full benefits for you and your family. You start whenever you want." The offer dropped like a nuclear bomb. $3,000 a week was a fortune for Matt. He could get his mother the best treatment. They could move to a better place. They could live with dignity. But before he could reply, Vanessa came running from the lift, her face pale and scared. "Mr. Riley, there's an emergency. Your sister Amy is in the hospital. She had a serious car accident." Patrick's world stopped. Amy, his younger sister, the only family he truly cared about. "Which hospital?" "St. Vincent's. They say it's critical." Patrick ran towards his Rolls Royce, but when he turned the key, the engine wouldn't start. He tried again. Nothing. A third time, the car was completely dead. "No, no, no," he screamed, hitting the steering wheel. "Not now." Tom, the chauffeur, tried to help but had no idea what to do. Liam offered his car, but it was in the service workshop. Finn had come by taxi. Minutes passed like hours, and Patrick was falling apart. "Let me see," Matt spoke, approaching the Rolls Royce. "I don't have time for your games," Patrick yelled, tears of desperation beginning to form. "Then let me help," Matt said firmly. "Or is your pride more important than your sister?" The words hit Patrick like a punch. He looked at Matt, saw the determination in his eyes, and for the first time in his life, Patrick Riley had to swallow his arrogance. "Please," he whispered, "please help me." Matt opened the bonnet and began to work faster than he ever had. His hands flew over the engine, checking connections, inspecting systems. He found the problem in less than 2 minutes. A critical fuse in the ignition system had failed. "I need a 30 amp fuse," he said. "I don't have one," Tom replied, desperate. "I do." Matt ran to his toolbox, pulled out the exact fuse, and installed it in the Rolls Royce. "Try it now." Patrick turned the key, and the engine roared to life. "It works," he cried, almost unable to believe it. He looked at Matt with an expression that was completely new, genuine gratitude mixed with profound shame. "Go to the hospital," Matt said simply. "Your sister needs you." "Thank you," Patrick whispered. And in that word, there was more emotion than in everything he had said before. "Thank you, Matt." The Rolls Royce sped out of the car park, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Tanaka approached Matt and put a hand on his shoulder. "You just saved more than a car, young man. You saved a man's chance to see his sister. That is priceless." "I just did the right thing," Matt replied, feeling strangely empty. "Precisely why my offer still stands. $3,000 a week. Think about it." When the guest left, Matt was left alone in the workshop. He looked at the photograph of his father on the shelf and felt tears stream down his cheeks. "Dad, I don't know if I did the right thing. I helped the man who humiliated me. Why don't I feel satisfied? Why do I only feel sad?" Vanessa returned hours later with news. "Amy is going to be all right." They got there in time. The doctor said if Patrick had been 15 minutes later. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Mr. Riley wants to see you tomorrow," she added. He said it's important. That night, Matt arrived home, emotionally and physically exhausted. Grace was waiting for him, with dinner ready, her sausages and rice that tasted of unconditional love. "How was your first day?" she asked with that smile she always kept for him. "Complicated, Mum." Matt didn't know where to start. Very complicated. He told her everything. The Ferrari, Mr. Tanaka, the $3,000 offer, Amy's emergency, how he saved Patrick's car. Grace listened in silence, her eyes moist. "Do you know what your father would have done?" she said finally. "What?" "Exactly what you did. Helped." Because good mechanics don't just fix machines, they fix lives. Your father knew that, and now you know it too. But he offered me triple the money, Mom, $3,000. We could live better. Yes, Grace interrupted gently. But would you live in peace? Patrick Riley is terrible, arrogant, cruel. But today you saw something in him, didn't you? You saw a desperate brother. You saw humanity. Matt nodded, unable to deny it. Give him a chance to change, Grace continued. Not for him, for you. Because vengeance weighs heavily, son, and I don't want you to carry that weight. The next day, Matt arrived at the workshop early. Patrick was already there, sitting in a chair, his eyes red from lack of sleep. He looked completely different without his armor of arrogance. Matt, Patrick said when he saw him enter. Thank you for coming. How is your sister? Stable. She's going to make a full recovery. Patrick slowly stood up. The doctor said that if I had arrived later, if you hadn't fixed the car, he couldn't finish. For the first time, Matt saw tears in Patrick Riley's eyes. Listen, Patrick continued, his voice cracking. I've been terrible to you. I have no excuse. I treated you like rubbish when you are extraordinary. Your father would be proud. My father taught me to help without expecting anything in return, Matt replied. That's why I helped yesterday. I know, and that's why, Patrick took a deep breath. That's why I want to truly apologize, not just with words but with actions. What do you mean? I want you to stay, not as a temporary employee, but as head mechanic for my entire collection. $2,500 weekly. Full family health insurance, and I'm personally going to pay for your mother's specialized treatment at a private clinic. Matt gasped. It was almost as much as Tanaka's offer, but with something more, the opportunity to see if people could truly change. Why are you doing this? He asked with justified suspicion. Because yesterday I realized something, Patrick said, wiping away tears without shame. I have millions of dollars, luxury cars, businesses in 3 countries. But when my sister was dying, all of that was worthless. The only thing that mattered was getting there on time. And, 2-year-old boy whom I had humiliated was the one who gave me that opportunity. He sat down again, covering his face with his hands. I've been a monster, Matt, with my employees, with my family, with you. But last night, sitting in that hospital, I saw my sister connected to machines, and I wondered, what if I end up like this? Who would visit me? Who would care? Your family would come, Matt said softly. My sister. Yes, but do you know what she told me when she woke up? She said, Patrick, stop being such a bloody idiot, or I swear I won't talk to you again. Those were her first words. Despite everything, Matt couldn't help but smile a little. I accept your offer, he said finally, but on one condition. Any condition. Treat all your employees well, not just me, Vanessa, Tom, everyone. Because if I see you being cruel to others again, I'm leaving. I don't care about the money. Patrick looked at him with something that might have been respect. Deal done. He extended his hand. And this time, when Matt shook it, there was no mockery or cruelty, just 2 people reaching an understanding. One more thing, Patrick, Matt added. How did you know exactly which fuse it was? In the darkness of panic? Without diagnostic tools? Matt smiled, remembering. My dad used to say good mechanics listen to the silence. The Rolls-Royce made no noise when you turned the key. That meant an electrical problem before the engine. And the ignition fuse is always the first to fail in stressful situations. Your father was wise. He was. Matt felt the familiar lump in his throat. And I hope one day to be as good as him. You already are, Matt, Patrick said sincerely. Believe me, you already are. That day marked a change in the Riley group. Patrick began to treat his employees differently. Not perfectly, but better. And Matt became more than a mechanic. He became a living reminder that true wealth is not in what you have, but in who you are. But the story was far from over, because the past has ways of coming back, and secrets about Michael Reynolds' death were about to come to light. Secrets that would change everything. 3 weeks had passed since that day at the hospital. The Riley group had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Patrick greeted employees by name, asked about their families, even increased wages. It was as if Amy's accident had awakened something in him that had been dormant for years. Matt worked in the workshop every day, caring for the car collection with a dedication that impressed everyone. Grace had begun her treatment at the private clinic, and doctors were amazed at how quickly she responded. For the first time in years, Matt felt that things were going well, but that morning everything was about to change. Matt was under a Lamborghini Aventador, checking the suspension system, when he heard voices approaching. It wasn't Patrick's voice, but someone speaking, with desperate urgency. "Please, I need to talk to someone. It's about Michael Reynolds." Matt rolled out from under the car so fast he bumped his head on the fender. In front of him was a man in his 50s, thin, in dirty work clothes, his face etched with years of hard labor. His hands trembled as he held a worn cap. "What did you say about my father?" Matt asked, jumping up. The man looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "Are you Michael's son, Matt?" "Yes, I am. Who are you?" "My name is Ray Burgess. I worked with your father at Hugh Fenton's workshop." The man practically collapsed against a car. "I've been looking for you for 3 months. I need to tell you the truth about what happened that day." Matt's world stopped. Vanessa, who had accompanied Ray, immediately called Patrick. In 5 minutes, they were all gathered in the private office. Matt, Ray, Patrick, Vanessa, and Tom, who had insisted on being present because he had known Michael. "Tell us everything," Patrick said in a serious voice, sitting next to Matt in a protective gesture that surprised everyone. Ray took a deep breath, wiping away tears. "The day Michael died, it wasn't an accident." The words fell like a bomb. Matt stood up so quickly he knocked over his chair. "What are you saying?" "The hydraulic lift didn't fail on its own," Ray continued, his voice cracking. "Hugh Fenton sabotaged it. He cut the safety cables and disabled the alarms." "Why?" Patrick asked, his voice filled with contained rage. "Why would anyone do that?" "Because Michael discovered something." Ray pulled a crumpled envelope from his jacket. "Hugh was stealing parts from the cars we repaired and replacing them with counterfeit parts. He was making millions from the business. Michael found the evidence and threatened to report him." Matt felt his legs give way. Patrick had to help him sit back down. "My dad was murdered. Hugh planned everything." Ray pulled documents from the envelope. "I was there. I saw Hugh checking the lift before Michael arrived. I saw how he made sure no one else was around when your father got under the truck." "And why didn't you say anything?" Vanessa asked, incredulously. "Because he threatened my family," Ray cried, pain and guilt overwhelming him. "He said if I spoke up, something would happen to my wife and kids. I have 3 children, miss. 3 young children. What was I supposed to do?" The silence in the office was suffocating. Matt stared blankly at the documents, not really seeing them. His father hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered. Murdered by a ruthless man who preferred to kill rather than lose his dirty business. "Why are you coming forward now?" Patrick asked, his voice unusually gentle. "Because Hugh is doing the same thing again," Ray explained. "There's a new mechanic at the workshop. A young guy like Matt. 2 weeks ago he discovered the fraud. Hugh threatened him, but the boy wasn't scared. And now Hugh is planning another accident." Matt stood up so fast everyone was startled. "We have to stop him. We have to go to the police now." "It's not that simple," Ray said bitterly. "Hugh has contacts in the police. He pays them well to ignore his business. That's why I came here. Someone told me Michael's son worked for Patrick Riley, one of the most powerful men in the city." Everyone looked at Patrick, who had remained silent, processing the information. When he spoke, his voice had that steely tone he used in important business deals. "Give me the workshop's name and address." "Fenton's Mechanics, on Industrial Avenue," Ray replied. "But, Mr. Riley, Hugh is dangerous. He has violent people working for him." "I have people too." Patrick pulled out his phone and started making calls. "And I also have lawyers, private investigators, and contacts who are far above any corrupt cop." As Patrick spoke on the phone, Matt approached Ray with tears streaming down his face. "You knew my dad. What was he like at work?" Ray smiled through his own tears. "He was the best man I ever knew, always helping others, always teaching. When my youngest son got sick and I had no money for medicine, Michael gave me his own wages. He said family was more important than anything." "That was my dad," Matt whispered, "always thinking of others before himself. And that's why his death has been killing me these 3 months." Ray broke down completely. "Every night I see his face. I hear the sound of that lift falling. I hate myself for not doing anything." "It's not your fault," Matt said, though the words were difficult. "You were protecting your family. Your father would have done the right thing, no matter the consequences," Ray replied. "He was a better man than I." Patrick finished his calls and turned to the group. "Right, I have a team of investigators going to the workshop right now. They're going to document everything. The fake parts, the altered records, the connections with corrupt police. I've also hired private security for the young mechanic who's in danger." "How much is all this going to cost you?" Ray asked, amazed. "I don't care," Patrick replied firmly. Michael Reynolds indirectly saved my sister's life by teaching his son everything. I owe him this." He turned to Matt, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And I owe much more to this young man who taught me that money without humanity is worthless." 2 hours later, the team of investigators called with news. They had found everything. A warehouse full of counterfeit auto parts, documents proving years of fraud, evidence of bribes to police officers. But most importantly, they had found the original maintenance report for the hydraulic lift, which proved that Hugh had sabotaged the equipment. "We've got him," Patrick announced. "The Attorney General is a friend of mine. With this evidence, Hugh Fenton is going to prison for murder." Matt should have felt satisfaction, victory, justice, but he only felt emptiness. Catching his father's killer wouldn't bring him back. It wouldn't fill the void he left in their lives. "Matt," Vanessa approached with concern. "Are you all right?" "I don't know," he replied honestly. "For 3 months I thought Dad died in an accident. Now I know someone killed him. I don't know how to feel." "Feel what you need to feel," Patrick said. And there was an understanding in his voice that hadn't existed weeks ago. Rage is valid. Pain is valid. Everything you feel is valid. That afternoon, the police arrested Hugh Fenton at his workshop. News cameras were there, capturing the moment a man who thought he was untouchable was handcuffed and led to prison. The young mechanic who had been in danger was safe, thanks to the security Patrick had hired. Matt watched the news on the workshop TV, unable to look away. There was the man who killed his father, being dragged into a police car while shouting that he was innocent. "Liar," Matt whispered with venom. "Coward. Liar." Grace arrived at the workshop shortly after, having heard the news, and ran to Matt, hugging him with a strength that didn't seem possible in her weak body. "My boy, my poor boy. Now we know the truth." "Mum, Dad was murdered." Matt completely broke down in his mother's arms. "They killed him because he wanted to do the right thing. That's why he was a hero," Grace whispered, stroking her son's hair. "Not because he was the best mechanic, but because he was the best man." Patrick watched the scene from a distance with Vanessa by his side. "I'll never forgive myself for how I treated that child," he said softly. "The son of a hero, and I trampled him as if he were nothing." "But you changed," Vanessa replied. "And that counts." "Counts? His father is dead. Nothing I do can change that." "You can't bring his father back," Vanessa said gently, "but you can make sure Michael Reynolds' legacy continues through Matt." That night, after Grace took Matt home, Patrick remained alone in his office. On his desk was the complete file of the investigation into Michael Reynolds. Not just the murder documents, but his entire professional history. Michael had revolutionized diagnostic techniques that were now taught in schools. He had trained dozens of mechanics who now worked in top companies. He had solved problems no one else could, and he had done it all with humility, without seeking fame or recognition. "He was everything I'm not," Patrick murmured to himself. "Or what I wasn't." He made a decision then, one that would change not only his life but the lives of many others. The next morning, Patrick called an urgent meeting with Matt and Grace. When they arrived, they found the office full of lawyers, accountants, and company executives. "What's going on?" Matt asked, confused. "Please sit." Patrick indicated 2 specially prepared chairs. "I have something important to announce." He waited for everyone to be silent before speaking. "For weeks, I've been reflecting on legacy, on what we leave in this world when we're gone. Hugh Fenton will leave a legacy of lies and death. Michael Reynolds left a legacy of excellence and kindness." He turned directly to Matt. "I want to create something that honors your father, something that ensures his name is never forgotten." Patrick pressed a button, and a presentation appeared on the giant screen. It was the design of a modern and beautiful technical college. The Michael Reynolds Technical Institute, he announced, a free school where young people from disadvantaged backgrounds can learn automotive mechanics, engineering, and technical trades. The best teachers, the best equipment, full scholarships, including books, uniforms, and food support. Matt couldn't believe what he was seeing. Grace openly wept. "The school will open next year," Patrick continued. "Capacity for 200 students per cycle. And you, Matt, will be part of the governing board, along with your mother." "Why are you doing this?" Matt asked, his voice trembling. "Because your father saved me without knowing it," Patrick replied. "He saved me by raising a son who taught me what truly matters in life. And because the world needs more people like Michael Reynolds, not more people like me." He approached Matt and, for the first time, genuinely hugged him. "Forgive me for how I treated you. Forgive me for not recognizing greatness when it was right in front of me." "I forgive you," Matt said, crying in the embrace. "My dad would have wanted me to forgive you. The news of the Michael Reynolds Technical Institute spread like wildfire. Dozens of companies offered donations. Mechanics who had been trained by Michael offered to teach for free. The entire community rallied to honor a man who had given everything without asking for anything in return. But for Matt, the most important thing wasn't the school or the recognition. It was knowing that his father hadn't died in vain, that his struggle to do the right thing, though it cost him his life, had planted seeds that were now growing in ways he never imagined. That night, Matt stayed in the workshop after everyone had left. He held the photograph of him and his father, looking at it under the dim light of the work lamp. "Dad," he whispered, "we caught the man who killed you, and your name is going to live forever. Hundreds of young people are going to learn what you taught me. They're going to carry your legacy forward." The wind blew the open window, gently rustling the photograph. And at that moment, Matt felt something he hadn't felt since his father's death. Peace. Justice had been served, the legacy was secured, and Matt knew that even though his father was no longer physically there, he would live forever in every repaired engine, in every student taught, in every life touched by his example. Michael Reynolds had been murdered, but his spirit was indestructible, and that was the greatest victory of all. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Michael Reynolds Technical Institute, illuminating workshops equipped with the latest technology. 4 years had passed since that day Patrick announced the school's creation. 4 years of construction, planning, and finally, 2 years of operation that had changed hundreds of lives. Matt Reynolds, now 16, walked through the corridors with a folder under his arm. He was no longer the thin, frightened boy who fixed cars on the street. He had become a confident young man with the same determined gaze as his father, but with a maturity that came from having faced and overcome life's toughest challenges. "Instructor Matt," a youthful voice called from one of the workshops. It was a 15-year-old student named Gus, in a spotless uniform with grease-stained hands. "The Volkswagen engine is still making that strange noise. Can you help me, Matt?" He smiled. Although technically too young to be an official professor, the students called him that out of respect. He was an instructor, assistant, mentor, and living example that dreams could come true no matter where you came from. "Let's take a look together." Matt entered the workshop where Gus was working. "Have you checked the timing system?" "Yeah, but I can't find anything." Matt leaned over the engine, listening carefully for that sound, that familiar ticking. "Close your eyes, Gus. Don't look. Listen." The student obeyed, and after a minute, his eyes opened with surprise. "It's the tensioner. The same problem you taught us about last week." "Exactly. Now you know what to do." As Gus worked with newfound confidence, Matt watched with pride. This was his father's legacy. Not just teaching mechanics, but teaching how to think, how to listen, how to understand. "Matt," Vanessa's voice came from the door. She was now the Institute's administrative director, having left her job with Patrick to dedicate herself completely to this project. "Your mum is in the boardroom. Says it's important." Matt found Grace sitting with Patrick, both reviewing documents with serious but satisfied expressions. His mother looked completely different from that weak woman of years ago. The treatment had worked miraculously. Although she still needed medication, the tremor had almost completely disappeared, and color had returned to her face. "Son," Grace smiled as he entered. "We have important news." Patrick pointed to the documents. "The government has just approved our application. The Michael Reynolds Institute will officially be recognized as a higher education institution. Students will receive nationally recognized technical degrees." That means Matt couldn't believe it. It means the kids who graduate from here will have the same opportunities as any private university student, Grace explained, with tears of happiness. "Your father would be so proud." "There's something else," Patrick added, pushing another document towards Matt. 5 international automotive companies want to sign agreements with us. They're going to offer specialization scholarships abroad for our best students." Matt felt his heart pound in his chest. Dad dreamed of something like this. He always said Australian talent was as good as any other. It just needed opportunities. And now it has them. Patrick stood up and walked to the window overlooking the main courtyard, where dozens of students worked on different vehicles. "Do you know how many young people have passed through these doors in 2 years?" 183, Matt replied without hesitation. He knew every name, every story. 183 lives changed. Patrick turned with an expression Matt had learned to recognize as genuine emotion. Families lifted out of poverty, dreams realized. All because a 12-year-old boy taught me that true wealth is not in what you have, but in what you give. At that moment, Ray Burgess entered, now working as the Institute's security coordinator. After testifying against Hugh Fenton, he had dedicated his life to protecting the students and ensuring they never faced the dangers he couldn't prevent for Michael. "Excuse the interruption," he said with a smile, "but there's someone at reception who wants to see Matt. Says it's urgent." Matt went down to reception and found a young man in his 20s, well-dressed, with a professional briefcase. He looked vaguely familiar. "Matt Reynolds?" the young man asked with an excited voice. "You might not remember. I'm Dean Taylor." Matt looked at him more closely, and then he recognized him. "Dean, the mechanic who was in danger at Hugh's workshop. That's me." Dean extended his hand with gratitude. "You saved my life. Well, your boss Patrick sent security, but it was because of you. What are you doing here? I've come to thank you personally." Dean opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. "After Hugh was arrested, I studied mechanical engineering. I graduated last month with honors. I got a job at a German company, and part of my contract is that I can bring an apprentice with me to Germany." He handed Matt an envelope. "I want it to be you. 6 months of training in Stuttgart, at the Mercedes-Benz plant, all expenses paid." Matt was speechless. Germany, Mercedes-Benz. It was every mechanic's dream. "Dean, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Dean insisted. "You're 16, and you're already a better mechanic than most professionals with 20 years of experience. Imagine what you could learn over there." "I need to think about it," Matt replied honestly. "I have responsibilities here. The students, my mum. I understand, but think fast. The program starts in 2 months." That night, Matt arrived home, the same apartment where he had lived all his life, though now renovated and comfortable, thanks to his salary. Grace was preparing dinner when he entered with a thoughtful expression. "You look worried, son. What happened?" Matt told her about Dean's offer. Grace listened in silence, without interrupting, with that maternal wisdom that always knew when to speak and when to simply be present. "It's an incredible opportunity," she said finally. "Your father would have given anything for an opportunity like that. But I can't leave you alone, Mum, and the students at the Institute need me." Grace sat next to him, taking his hands in hers. "Matt, since you were 12, you've been looking after me, working, sacrificing. You haven't been selfish for a single day. Now it's time for you to think about yourself." But nothing," she gently interrupted. "I'm fine. The treatment works. I have savings, and Vanessa visits me every week. The students have other excellent instructors, and 6 months isn't forever. Do you really think I should go? I think your father is pushing you from heaven to accept." Grace smiled with tears in her eyes. "He always wanted you to see the world, to learn everything possible. Don't let fear stop you." The next day, Matt sought Patrick in his office at the Riley Group. The building was still impressive, but now Matt walked its corridors with confidence, greeted by employees who knew and respected him. "Matt," Patrick greeted him with a hug, something that had become customary between them. "What brings you here?" Matt told him about the German offer and his doubts. Patrick listened attentively, nodding occasionally. "Do you know what's the hardest thing about being a mentor?" Patrick asked, when Matt finished. "It's letting go of the people you care about, knowing they need to fly on their own. So, you think I should go?" "I think you're afraid to be happy," Patrick replied, with the brutal honesty he had learned to use with love. "For 4 years, you've been looking after others, your mum, the students, even me, when I needed to learn to be a better person. Now someone is offering to look after you, and it scares you." The words hit Matt because they were true. "Your father gave his life doing the right thing," Patrick continued. "Don't let his sacrifice be in vain by living in fear. Live fully, learn everything, become the best, and then come back and share that knowledge. And if something happens to my mum while I'm away, then I'll be here," Patrick said firmly. "I give you my word. I'll look after Grace as if she were my own mother, and if any emergency happens, I'll fly you back on my private jet." Matt felt the weight of years of responsibility beginning to lift from his shoulders. "You'd really do that, Patrick? 4 years ago, a boy saved my sister's life when I didn't deserve his help. Since then, I've been trying to be worthy of that act of kindness. Letting you go and fulfill your dreams is the least I can do." A week later, the Institute organized a special assembly. All the students, teachers, and staff were gathered in the main auditorium. Matt went up on stage nervously, looking at the faces of the people who had become his extended family. "I have an announcement to make," he began, his voice amplified by the loudspeakers. "I've received an opportunity to study in Germany for 6 months." A murmur ran through the auditorium. Gus, his favorite student, looked particularly dismayed. "I know some of you are worried," Matt continued. "I was too, but I realized something important. My father always said that knowledge is only valuable if it's shared. If I go to Germany, it's not to leave you. It's to bring back new techniques, new ideas, to make this institute even better." The students began to applaud slowly at first, then with more force. "Plus," Matt smiled, "6 months will fly by, and when I come back, we're going to implement everything I learn. We're going to make the Michael Reynolds Institute recognized not only in Australia but around the world." The ovation was deafening. Gus stood up and shouted, "When you come back, teach me everything, Instructor Matt." Other students joined in. "Bring back German technology. Learn from the best. Make your father's name shine in Europe." That night, Matt went to the cemetery where Michael rested. The grave now had a beautiful marble headstone paid for by Patrick, with the words, "Michael Reynolds, mechanic, teacher, hero." His legacy lives in every engine repaired and every life changed. Matt knelt in front of the grave, placing fresh flowers. "Dad," he whispered, "I'm going to do something that scares me a lot. I'm going to Germany to study. I know you always wanted me to see the world, to learn from the best." The wind blew softly, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. "Mum's doing well. The institute is growing. Patrick isn't the man he was. Everything's turning out just as you would have wanted." Matt felt tears running down his face. "But I still miss you every day. There are still times when I need your advice, your voice, your hug." He pulled out the old photograph of them both that he always carried in his wallet. "I'm going to take you with me to Germany. Dad, in my heart, in my work, in every engine I touch. And when I come back, I'm going to keep honoring your name." He slowly stood up, wiping his tears. "Thank you for teaching me that a person's true worth isn't in their money or their position, but in their heart and their hands. I'm going to make you proud." As he walked back to the cemetery exit, Matt felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pure excitement for the future. Not fear, not anxiety, just the anticipation of new adventures and new learning. 2 months passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Passport, visa, farewells, last classes at the institute. Finally, the day of departure arrived. At the airport, Grace, Patrick, Vanessa, Tom, Ray, and at least 30 students from the institute gathered to see him off. There were banners, balloons, and many tears. "Take good care of yourself, son." Grace hugged him tightly. "Call every week. Eat well and don't forget your jacket when it's cold." "Mum, I'll be fine." Matt reassured her, though his own tears contradicted his calm tone. Patrick approached and handed him an envelope, something for extra expenses. "Don't argue. Just take it." "Patrick, you've already paid for everything." "And I'll keep paying for whatever you need," Patrick interrupted. "You're like the son I never had, Matt. Let me do this." They embraced. Two people who had started as enemies and had become family. Gus and the other students approached with a wrapped gift. "Open it on the plane, instructor," Gus said, his voice cracking with emotion. When his flight was called, Matt walked towards the boarding gate, turning every few steps to wave. At the gate, he stopped one last time, looking at all the people he loved. "6 months!" he shouted. "See you in 6 months." "We love you, Matt," they all chanted in unison. On the plane, as they took off and Sydney became smaller and smaller below, Matt opened the gift from his students. It was a photo album of the institute, with messages written by each student and teacher. "Thank you for teaching us that dreams have no limits. You showed us that humility and talent go hand in hand. Come back soon, instructor. We'll miss you." On the last page was a photo of Michael's statue that Patrick had commissioned and installed at the institute's entrance. And below, in Grace's handwriting, "Your father watches you from the stars, proud of the man you have become. Fly high, my boy. Your legacy has only just begun." Matt closed the album and looked out the window at the infinite sky. 6 months in Germany, 6 months to grow, learn, and become the best version of himself. And then he would return. He would return to change even more lives, to expand his father's legacy, to prove that a boy who was once humiliated on the street could conquer the world. Matt Reynolds' story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The German winter had been tough, but Matt had survived and thrived. Stuttgart became his second home during those magical months. At the Mercedes-Benz plant, he learned computerized diagnostic techniques he didn't even know existed. He worked with engineers from 5 different countries and discovered that his father's legacy preceded him, even in Europe. "Michael Reynolds was your father?" A German engineer named Klaus had asked him in his second week. "I read his paper on acoustic diagnostics. It revolutionized how we train mechanics here in Germany. Matt hadn't known his father had published papers. He hadn't known his influence had crossed oceans. Every day he discovered something new about the man who had raised him, and each discovery filled him with pride and determination. But now, 6 months later, he was back on a plane to Australia with a suitcase full of certificates, technical manuals, and gifts for everyone. More importantly, he was returning with ideas that would transform the institute. When the plane landed in Sydney, Matt felt an emotion he hadn't experienced in Germany, the feeling of being home. He exited the arrivals terminal and found himself in a scene he would never forget. It wasn't 30 people this time. It was over 200 current students, graduates, teachers, Riley Group, employees. And in the center of it all, Grace held a huge banner that read, "Welcome home, son. Matt, Matt, Matt." They all chanted in unison. Matt ran to his mother, hugging her with such force he almost lifted her off the ground. "Mum, I missed you so much." "And I missed you, my boy. But look what you've achieved." Grace pointed to the crowd. "Everyone came to welcome you. Everyone loves you." Patrick approached, looking younger and happier than Matt had ever seen him. "Welcome, son. How was Germany?" "Incredible. I have so many things to tell you. So many ideas." "I know." Patrick smiled mysteriously. "That's why we've organized something special for tomorrow. A conference at the Institute. We want you to share everything you've learned." The next day, the Institute's auditorium was completely full. Not just students, but also owners of mechanical workshops from across the city, representatives from automotive companies, journalists, and educational authorities. Matt went up on stage, feeling butterflies in his stomach. It was one thing to work with students one-on-one, and quite another to speak in front of 300 people. But when he saw his mother in the front row, smiling proudly at him, he remembered all the time she had been strong for him. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, his voice clear despite his nervousness. 6 months ago, I got on a plane terrified. I had never left the country, never been away from my family, and I didn't know if I would be good enough to be at Mercedes-Benz. The audience listened in absolute silence. "But I discovered something important in Germany," he continued. "I discovered that the knowledge my father gave me, the techniques I learned on the streets of this city, were just as valuable as any training in Europe. The difference isn't in where you learn, but in how much passion you put into it." He projected images on the giant screen behind him, photos of the Mercedes-Benz plant, of him working with German engineers, of certificates and awards. "In Germany, I learned advanced diagnostic techniques, yes. But I also taught them something. I taught them Michael Reynolds' acoustic diagnostic method, my father's. And you know what? They were so impressed that they're now implementing it in their training program." A murmur of pride swept through the audience. Gus, sitting in the third row, had tears in his eyes. "But the most important thing I learned," Matt paused, letting his words resonate, "is that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if you started fixing cars on the street or if you studied at the best university. What matters is your heart, your dedication, and your willingness to never stop learning." He looked directly at the students. "Many of you come from tough neighborhoods. Many have families struggling to survive. Some have been belittled, humiliated, or ignored. I went through all of that. But I'm here to tell you that those experiences don't define you. What defines you?" Several students openly wept. "My father was murdered for doing the right thing." Matt felt his own voice crack, but he continued. "It would have been easy to become bitter, full of hatred. But instead, I chose to honor his memory by being the best mechanic, the best teacher, the best person I could be." He pointed to Patrick, who was sitting next to Grace. "And that man right there, Patrick Riley, humiliated me in the worst possible way when we first met. He made me pick money off the ground. He treated me like rubbish. But do you know what I learned? That people can change, that redemption is real, and that forgiving doesn't make you weak, it makes you free." Patrick discreetly wiped a tear, nodding in acknowledgement. "So my message to you is this," Matt raised his voice with passion. "Never let anyone tell you that you can't. Never let circumstances define you. And above all, never forget that knowledge without kindness is useless. But kindness with knowledge can change the world." The ovation that followed was deafening. Everyone stood up, applauding until their hands hurt. Gus ran to the stage and hugged Matt, followed by dozens of other students. After the conference, an older man approached Matt. He wore an elegant suit and carried a leather briefcase. "Mr. Reynolds, my name is Edward Coleman. I am the director of the Australian Automotive Industry Association. It's an honor, sir." Matt shook his hand. "The honor is mine. Your presentation was extraordinary, and I have a proposal for you and for this institute." Edward explained that the association wanted to establish a national network of technical institutes based on the Michael Reynolds Institute model. They wanted to replicate the success in 10 different cities, and they wanted Matt to be the technical director of the entire project. He would have to travel, train instructors, design curricula, Edward explained, but he would be changing technical education across Australia. Matt looked at his mother, who nodded with a smile. He looked at Patrick, who gave him a thumbs up. He looked at the students surrounding him, awaiting his answer. "I accept," he said finally. "But on one condition." "Any condition. The first institute outside Sydney must open in the town where my father was born and must offer full scholarships for the poorest students." "Done." Edward extended his hand. "I believe your father would be very proud." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Matt worked designing the curriculum for the new institutes, training instructors, giving lectures, but he always made time for his original students, especially Gus. Instructor Matt. Gus said to him one day while they worked together on an engine, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure, Gus." "How do you manage not to be angry with the world? Your dad died, you were humiliated, you went hungry. I've been through much less, and sometimes I feel so much rage." Matt stopped working and looked at his student. "Rage is normal, Gus. I felt it too, but I learned something important. Rage is like acid. It damages the vessel that contains it more than anything it's poured upon. So, you just ignore it?" "I don't ignore it. I transform it," Matt explained. "Every time I feel rage about what happened to me, I turn it into motivation to help someone else. Every time I remember the humiliation, I use that memory to ensure I never make anyone else feel that way." Gus nodded, slowly, absorbing the words. "Besides," Matt smiled, "the best revenge against those who belittle you is success. Not success to show off, but success to prove they were wrong." 3 months after his return from Germany, the institute celebrated its largest graduation ceremony to date. 50 students would receive their diplomas, and all already had job offers waiting for them. Matt was backstage when Patrick approached with a serious expression. "Matt, I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" "Amy, my sister's having a baby. A boy." "Patrick, that's wonderful." Matt hugged him genuinely. "She wants to name him Michael," Patrick said with an emotional voice, "in honor of your father. She says if that day at the hospital I had been late, this baby would never have existed. And all of that was possible because you fixed my car." Matt felt tears in his eyes. His father's legacy continued to grow in ways he never imagined. "Is there anything else?" Patrick continued. "I've been talking to lawyers. I want to formally adopt Grace as my mother and you as my son. If you both agree." Matt was speechless. "Patrick, You don't have to answer now," Patrick said quickly. "Just think about it. You're my family anyway, but I'd like it to be official." That night, after the graduation ceremony, Matt went to the cemetery. Michael's grave was now surrounded by fresh flowers that students and former students brought regularly. "Dad," Matt spoke in the darkness. "It's been 4.5 years since you left, and there are still days when it hurts so much I can't breathe. But there are also days filled with so much joy that I feel like my heart will explode." He sat on the grass next to the grave. "The institute has your name. They're going to open 10 more across the country. Hundreds of young people are learning what you taught. And Patrick, the man who humiliated me, wants to adopt me as his son." A shooting star crossed the night sky. "I don't know what to do about that last one," Matt admitted. "Mom says you'd want me to accept that you always wanted us to have a big family, but I feel like accepting would mean forgetting you." The wind blew softly, rustling the leaves of the trees. "But I think I know what you'd tell me." Matt smiled through his tears. "You'd tell me that love isn't limited, that loving Patrick as a father figure doesn't mean I love you any less. You'd tell me that forgiveness and redemption are beautiful, and that I'm big enough to hold all that love in my heart." He stood up, wiping his tears. "I'm going to accept his proposal, Dad. I'm going to be Patrick Riley's son on paper. But always, always, I'll be Michael Reynolds' son in my heart." 6 months later, in a private ceremony, Patrick officially adopted Matt and Grace. It didn't replace Michael, but expanded the family in ways that healed old wounds. And exactly 1 year after returning from Germany, Matt turned 18. The Riley Group organized a massive celebration at the Institute with current students, graduates, teachers, and industry leaders. But the best gift came unexpectedly. Edward Coleman went on stage with an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to inform you that the Prime Minister of Australia has signed an official decree. As of today, March 15th, It will be recognized as the National Day of Technical Education in honor of Michael Reynolds and his transformative legacy. The ovation was deafening. Grace cried with happiness. Patrick hugged Matt with paternal pride. And somewhere in heaven, Michael Reynolds smiled. Matt took the microphone, looking at all the faces that had been part of his incredible journey. 6 years ago, I started. I was a scared child fixing cars on the street to buy medicine for my mum. A rich man humiliated me, made me feel invisible, treated me like I was worthless. He looked at Patrick. That man is here today, and he is my adopted father, my mentor, and one of my best mates. He turned to the entire audience. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this. Never allow circumstances to define you. Never let the cruelty of others extinguish your light. And never, ever underestimate the power of kindness, forgiveness, and education. He held up a photo of Michael that he always carried with him. My biological father gave me the tools, my adopted father gave me the platform, but you, all of you, gave me the purpose. His voice rose with final passion. So go out there and change the world. Not because you're the richest or the most powerful, but because you are the most determined, the kindest, and the most resilient. Show that dreams have no limits when the heart is big enough. The last words resonated in the auditorium like a thunder of hope. And as everyone applauded, Matt closed his eyes and whispered one last prayer. Thank you, Dad, for everything. This is for you. Because in the end, Matt Reynolds had learned the most important lesson of all. True wealth is not measured in money, but in the lives you touch. True success is not in how much you have, but in how much you give. And a true legacy is not built in stone monuments, but in transformed hearts. A child once humiliated had changed the destiny of thousands, and that was the greatest victory money could ever buy.